Okay guys, so since I'm not here, I'm going to go over a few problems from the worksheet that you have today. So we're actually going to start with number 2. And if we notice, we have the cubed root of 3p minus 232 equals the cubed root of p over 10. And so in order to get rid of that cubed root, we're going to cube both sides of the equation, because what we do to one side, we have to do to the other. That's going to get rid of our cubed root. And we have 3p minus 232 equals p over 10. The next thing that we're going to do is we're going to multiply by 10 on both sides, okay, which is actually going to be distributed to this entire quantity here. And so we have 30p minus 2320 equals p, okay? And so the next thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to subtract the p, and I'm going to add 2320, and so I get 29p equals 2320. The last thing I'm going to do is, divide by 29. Divide by 29. We're going to go up here, so p equals 80, okay? And if I go ahead and check that, I can see that that is going to work out, okay? And so the next one we're going to do is, I'll set number 4 up for you. And so we see that we have the square root. So we're going to square both sides. And so we have r squared equals 21 plus 4r. I'll actually finish this one for you guys. We're going to subtract 21 and subtract 4r. So we have r squared minus 4r minus 21 equals 0. I'm going to factor. And I have r here, 7 and 3. I have a negative 7 and a positive 3. And so when I actually solve each part, I have r minus 7 equals 0, so I add 7. So I have r equals 7. I have r plus 3 equals 0, and I have r equals negative 3. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and check. And I'm going to plug it in, so I have negative 3 equals the square root of 21 plus 4 times negative 3. Okay, if we simplify this, we have negative 3 equals the square root of 21 plus, just kidding, it would be minus 12. And so we have negative 3 equals the square root of, let's see, 21 minus 12 give us 9. So we have negative 3 equals 3. Doesn't work, right? So we don't count, or we don't take into consideration our negative 3 because it does not make this statement true. It makes it false. Okay, we would do the same for 7. 7 actually works out a little bit nicer, and it works out. So continuing on number 6, I'm going to set it up for you. You notice that we have n equals the square root of 3n. We're going to, I don't know why I just cubed it. We're going to square both sides. And so I get n squared equals the square root of 3n. Oh, let me try that again. We just have 3n, right? Because our squares cancels our square root. I subtract the 3n. So I have n squared minus 3n equals 0. Okay, I factor out an n, so I have n times n minus 3 equals 0. Then I go ahead and I have n equals 0, n equals 3, because I set both parts equal to 0. And then I'm going to check to make sure that they both work. So if I plug 0 in, I have 0 equals the square root of 3 times 0. 0 equals 0, so that works. If I plug 3 in, I have 3 equals 3 times 3. So 3 equals the square root of 9. So 3 equals 3. And so both of these work. Okay, so your answer will include n equals 0 and n equals 3. Okay, So the first thing I want to do for 8 is I want to subtract 3 to get rid of that. Once I do that, I have negative cubed root of x plus 1 equals negative 1. Okay, I'm going to divide out by the negative, and I have the cubed root of x plus 1 equals 1. Now I'm going to cube both sides to get rid of that cubed root. And I have x plus 1 equals 1. I subtract the 1, and I have x equals 0. Okay. If I go ahead and check that, I have 3 minus the cubed root of 0 plus 1 equals 2. 3 minus the cubed root of 1 equals 2. 3 minus 1, because the cubed root of 1 is going to be 1. 3 minus 1 equals 2. 2 equals 2. And so that works. Okay, guys, so we're going to finish off, with 12 and 14. Okay, so let's start with 12. The first thing we want to do is add a to both sides. And so we have the square root of 2a minus 5 equals a minus 2. In order to get rid of that square root, I'm going to square both sides of the equation. Because again, what I do to one side, I have to do to both sides. So I have 2a minus 5 equals a minus 2 times a minus 2. So I just expanded the a minus 2. And so I get 2a minus 5 equals a squared minus 4a plus 4. I'm going to move everything here to the other side, so I'm going to subtract 2a and add 5. Subtract 2a and add 5. And so I get 0 equals a squared minus 6a plus 9. So I can go ahead and factor that. And so I have 0 equals a times a. And then 3 and 3, and both are going to be negative. And so I know that I have a minus 3 equals 0, a minus 3 equals 0. It's the same thing. So a equals 3. If I check that, right, by plugging it in, we have the square root of 2 times 3 minus 5 minus 3 equals negative 2. And so I have 6 minus 5 minus 3 equals negative 2. I have 1 minus 3 equals negative 2, which works. Okay, so our answer would be a equals 3. Okay, let's go ahead and dive into 14. It's the last one we're going to do. Okay, the first thing I want to do is divide by a negative 10. Okay, because I'm trying to isolate this here. So I'm trying to isolate this piece here, and I want to get rid of this negative 10. And so if I divide both sides by negative 10, I get 10x plus 4 to the 1/2 equals 2. Okay, in order to get rid of this 1/2, I'm going to square both sides. Remember, 1/2 times 2 is equal to 1. So I have 10x plus 4 equals 4. I'm going to subtract 4 from both sides. So I have 10x equals 0. I'm going to divide by 10 to get x by itself, and I see that I have x equals 0. Okay? If I plug that in, I have negative 10 times 0 plus 4 to the 1/2 equals negative 20, which gives me a 0 here. And so I have 10 times 4 to the 1/2 equals negative 20. So half of 4 is 2, so I have 10 times 2 equals negative 20. And I don't know where my negative 10 went here. I still have negative 10. Sorry about that. That should be 2. So 10 times 2 is negative 20. So negative 20 equals negative 20. So that works, and my answer is indeed x equals 0.